Rory McIlroy has turned a scheduling issue into a test of who really controls the PGA Tour. Rory answered. Tour officials stayed careful. Billy Horschel redirected the debate. That reaction exposed the power struggle. The PGA Tour looked close to a meltdown when reports suggested its biggest active star could miss the minimum and avoid normal consequences. Rory McIlroy's camp confirms officials had already been warned in late 2025. From there, they've been building a case for months around injury, international status, life membership, and the freedom Rory believes he has earned. There is no verified lawsuit behind that wording. The stronger story is a private negotiation hiding in public view. Rory won the career Grand Slam, defended the Masters, reduced his schedule, and spoke as though the matter had already been handled. The tour cited discretion. Horschel said membership itself was safe. Social media then split between fans calling Rory entitled and supporters saying he carried the circuit when others left. The balance now favors Rory because his name remains commercially vital across professional golf's modern business. Subscribe and tell me which side has more leverage here. Now let us trace when that balance of power changed. The first shift came when McIlroy stopped treating the question like a threat. At the Genesis Scottish Open, he described his contact with Brian Rolapp and the tour team as constant dialogue. Then he added the sentence that gave the story its real weight. He had warned them near the end of last year that this could happen. "They know" sounded casual, yet it removed any idea that officials had been surprised by his projected shortfall. The viral moment was not an angry press conference or a legal threat. It was a calm admission that the issue had already been discussed long before fans discovered it. That changes how the phrase "building a case" should be understood. No public evidence shows a legal team preparing action against the PGA Tour. The case was practical. McIlroy could point to advance notice, then place his medical interruption within the foreign member rules, while lifetime membership strengthened his control over scheduling. His representatives did not need courtroom language. They needed enough facts to show why one missed start should not damage the relationship between golf's biggest active name and the circuit that still depends on him. The groundwork began with McIlroy's schedule philosophy. He had already said that PGA Tour membership gave players room to select the events that fit their lives. By late 2025, he knew his next season would be lighter. That decision did not come from poor form. It followed years spent chasing the Masters while carrying a public burden during golf's fight with LIV, after which major preparation shaped his calendar. Once he informed the tour that the minimum could become a problem, every later choice happened with officials already aware of the risk. His position became stronger at Augusta. McIlroy defended the Masters in April. The victory became his 6th major championship and his 30th PGA Tour title. That success gave him even more control over his calendar. Players fighting to keep a card cannot skip a valuable start without fear. Lifetime membership gave this 6-time major winner room to weigh recovery, family needs, major preparation, or opportunities outside golf. The difference is not written on a leaderboard. It exists in the amount of leverage each player carries into a private conversation. The season also supplied a medical point. McIlroy withdrew during the Arnold Palmer Invitational because of a back problem, then arrived later than usual at the Players' Championship. That injury matters because the handbook allows discretion for medical reasons or extraordinary circumstances. It does not explain every event he missed, however. Rory later missed the RBC Heritage before choosing to sit out the Cadillac Championship at Doral and the Travelers Championship. Some absences reflected recovery or scheduling pressure. Others reflected deliberate choices about preparation and life away from competition. Doral made the argument especially uncomfortable for critics. McIlroy chose a White House state dinner involving the British royal family, then used the surrounding time to prepare for the PGA Championship. Rather than divide his attention, he openly explained that decision. At Travelers Week, he practiced at Royal Birkdale instead of entering another signature event. Those choices suggested control rather than a plea for mercy, with the champion placing his priorities above a number printed in the handbook. This is where Billy Horschel entered as the challenger to the public story. His response rejected the loudest claims about cheating or special treatment. Horschel pointed out that McIlroy is a lifetime member. In his reading, missing 15 starts would not simply erase Rory's PGA Tour membership. The relevant issues involved voting rights and releases for conflicting international events. That correction weakened the claim that Rory faced automatic exile, but it sharpened another question. Why had the consequences been described so poorly? Horschel represents the member who understands the value of regular participation. Full seasons shaped his career, with FedEx Cup pressure rewarding regular appearances across the calendar. Rory represents the established champion whose status creates options that most players never receive. Their positions were not direct enemies, yet the contrast exposed the tour's problem. A social media reply from one player explained the rule more clearly than the organization responsible for enforcing it, after confusion had already spread across golf. That post became a turning point because it changed the argument. Fans had first reacted to reports that McIlroy might receive a free pass. The reaction split between accusations that a powerful player was bending the system and arguments that years of service had earned him freedom. Horschel's clarification removed the simplest punishment from the debate. Outrage then moved toward the less visible membership benefits attached to the minimum, including voting influence and permission to play against tour events elsewhere. The handbook provision added another layer. It gives the commissioner discretion after an application from a foreign member to reduce the required minimum for medical reasons or other extraordinary circumstances. That language existed before Rory needed it. Calling it a newly invented exemption would be false. Still, broad discretion creates a communications problem whenever the beneficiary is a global star. The rule can be valid while the decision looks selective. Both ideas can exist without proving corruption. By this point, the months-long case had taken a recognizable shape. Advance warning formed its base. The documented back issue connected Rory to a discretionary section for foreign members, and lifetime status reduced the threat to his basic standing. Those facts did not guarantee every privilege, although they gave his camp a strong negotiating position without any need for panic. At the Scottish Open, his golf weakened the idea that a lighter calendar meant retreat. An opening 65 put him near the lead. A difficult third round followed, and his closing 64 secured a tie for 7th. The result did not settle the membership question, but it reinforced his claim that added practice and fewer starts could keep him competitive. For tour officials, that created another uncomfortable fact. The schedule causing controversy might help one of their leading attractions perform better. The PGA Tour now faced the harder side of the power struggle because no option looked painless. Enforcing the minimum risked a needless fight with a player who drives attention, sponsor value, and television interest, while accommodation invited questions from ordinary members about equal force. A detailed explanation would expose the rule's flexible edges. Continued silence left social media free to define them. By then, the story had escaped the narrow language of membership. That was the real meltdown taking shape, not a legal explosion, but a failure to control what the rule meant. Once Rory forced everyone to examine it, the fairness test becomes sharper when Martin Kaymer enters the timeline. A decade earlier, Kaymer failed to satisfy the same basic minimum and lost his PGA Tour membership for the following season. Later, the Tour treated a different shortfall as an extenuating circumstance after an Open Championship alternate situation affected his options. That history proves discretion was not created for McIlroy. It also proves outcomes can change according to circumstances, which leaves fans judging whether Rory's reasons deserve the same mercy. Kaymer's example matters because he was already a major champion when the Tour enforced the requirement against him. Rory carries greater commercial weight today, but fame should not alter the written standard unless the standard openly allows judgment. The Tour can defend Rory through the clause. It cannot honestly pretend that public suspicion is unreasonable when one decorated foreign member once paid a price and another appears likely to receive relief. Transparency becomes the only credible defense. Uncertainty gave the Tour room to act, but made public trust harder to preserve. McIlroy's side can answer with a different reading of fairness. A back problem interrupted his season after officials had already received warning about the possible shortfall. His worldwide schedule also supports events connected to the DP World Tour, which helps explain why the home tour arrangement exists for foreign stars. Golf has not disappeared from his calendar. He is choosing appearances according to their personal or competitive value. Under that view, an extra start made only for arithmetic would protect the rule while ignoring its purpose. That argument returns the story to Rory's core instinct. His career has always mixed hunger with heartbreak. For years, Augusta represented the missing prize that defined every spring. Winning the Masters in 2025 completed the career Grand Slam. Defending it in 2026 changed his relationship with pressure again. The chase that once controlled him no longer had the same power. A player who finally escaped that burden was unlikely to hand control of his calendar to an administrative minimum. His lighter schedule became a statement about what success should buy. Rory credited family time with restoring balance and linked extra practice to sharper tournament starts. Fewer appearances, he admitted, could damage his chances in the season-long race. That trade-off was acceptable to him. The decision reveals a veteran choosing enthusiasm over accumulation. It also creates tension with a tour that sells season-long commitment as part of its competitive product. For the hungry member below Rory's level, that freedom can look impossible. A player chasing status depends on frequent starts because points influence future access and sponsor attention. Missing a week can reduce future access. Horschel's correction therefore carried more than technical value. It reminded viewers that membership contains layers. Basic standing can survive even when voting power or international releases become vulnerable, while tournament access follows another set of conditions. Rory's security lets him negotiate over the edges, while less protected players spend their seasons fighting for the center. Commercial reality strengthens his hand. McIlroy owns 6 major championships and 30 PGA Tour victories. With a public profile recognized far beyond regular golf audiences, Nike still presents him as a leading golf figure, while TaylorMade connects equipment marketing to his performance. Broadcasters promote events with his image because viewers respond to it. Those relationships do not cancel the rules. They explain why tour leaders would rather interpret a clause than create a public break with him. This is the uncomfortable meaning behind the title's claim. His camp appears to have spent months preparing an explanation, not an attack. Advance notice supported good faith, while the injury connected his situation to formal discretion for foreign members. Lifetime status limited the damage available as a threat. Beyond the handbook, his commercial value supplied leverage that made an open challenge from officials less likely. The word case, therefore, works only when it describes persuasion. Nothing verified points to legal action or any threat to sue. Rory's own statement sounds cooperative rather than hostile. He speaks with Rolap and the team about this issue along with other tour business. "We'll figure it out" is the language of an insider expecting a solution. The rage comes from how confident that expectation appears when ordinary members cannot assume the same outcome. Social media made that confidence look either earned or arrogant. Skipped signature events gave critics their strongest argument about the minimum, while Rory's role during the LIV crisis led supporters to treat flexibility as repayment for loyalty. Then Horschel's reply disrupted both camps by narrowing the consequences. The debate stopped being a simple choice between suspension and favoritism. It became a fight over privileges, discretion, and the tour's duty to explain its own structure. That shift damaged the PGA Tour more than it damaged Rory. He had already made his priorities public. Officials still carried responsibility for explaining whether Rory had applied and how any relief would affect his rights. Without those details, every silence looked strategic. Fans filled the gaps with accusations because the organization offered no simple account strong enough to replace them. Rory's strongest move was refusing to sound defensive. A nervous player might promise another event or insist that the calendar had trapped him. McIlroy did neither. He acknowledged the dialogue and confirmed the early warning, trusting his relationship with tour leaders to produce an answer. That manner reflected the same control visible in his scheduling choices. The tour could write the requirement, yet Rory behaved like the person deciding how much of it would govern his year. A clean resolution would require honesty about how the rule works and why discretion applies here. The tour could then describe the effect on Rory's rights without hiding behind broad language. Some critics would remain, but the suggestion of a secret arrangement would lose force. Rory's camp could also clarify that months of discussion concerned an accommodation rather than a legal confrontation. No courtroom battle is needed to make the facts compelling. The final balance of power remains clear. Rory can reduce his appearances without abandoning major preparation or a worldwide schedule, even if that choice weakens his season-long prospects. The PGA Tour must decide whether one extra start is worth tension with a central commercial star. Its handbook provides room to avoid that conflict. His camp saw the opening before the public noticed it, which explains the confidence behind his Scottish open answer. So decide where you stand. Has McIlroy earned control of his schedule, or has the tour created one standard for its biggest star and another for everyone else? Comment below and subscribe.